guys, how are you? I hope you all are doing good. So today we are gonna interpret John Stuart Mill. John Stuart Mill, he was a political thinker who is known for his work on utilitarianism and liberalism. So we will look into it, and if it is said that if there is anyone who is liberal, it is Mill. It is said that as John Locke is known as father of liberalism, yet he had given them the whole overview of the liberty. He is just a concern about the possessive individualism, not liberty in right sense. According to John Stuart Mill, liberty is not just to have a right to property. It is about liberty of freedom of speech, and expression, freedom from association, and freedom from customs, traditions, and so on. It was J. Mill who was the first to expand liberalism. Mill is also known as the champion of democracy and rights of women. What are the Mill's uniqueness as a thinker, which make him apart from other thinkers? Unique aspect of Mill as a thinker, it is that he is inconsistent in his thinking. He is known as the champion of liberty. But he is also known as the prophet of anti-liberty. If Mill is an advocate of democracy, in other way he is also the reluctant Democrat. We'll look into his inconsistent thinking in upcoming portion. So, reason behind his inconsistency. He is inconsistent because of his times. All the thinkers derive their thinking from his time. So I think he is also the person who derived from his thinking according to the time, as it is seen that he is standing on the crossroads of classical and modern liberalism. I hope you all are aware of the classical and modern liberalism. Classical liberalism is in the straightforward that he promotes the laissez-faire, means he is considered only for the trade purpose, that all the boundaries should not be there for the trade purpose. He is focusing on trade. But in the modern liberalism, there is the freedom of speech and expressions, and to have a property and the other rights of liberty, which we can say. That's why, because of his times, during his times, the modern liberalism is was emerging, and he was in the crossroads of these thinking. So that's why they think that he is inconsistent in his thinking. Okay. On utilitarianism and revision of utilitarianism by Mill. What is the utilitarian? Utilitarianism is the dominant philosophy in Britain in 18th and 19th century. It had wide appeal among the common man. Hence, that's why it is called as the philosophy of the common man. As the common man doesn't have the proper IQ, or we can set the mindset to understand philosophical notion, and hence the utilitarian philosophy emerge. What does the utilitarianism means? Utilitarian derived from the what gives him pleasure, and should avoid pain. Over the time, it is called as the Pix philosophy. Pix philosophy because as the Pix are those who doesn't focus on the quality. Pix doesn't focus on quality, rather they focus on quantity. So that's why they focus on the Pix. That's why it is called as the Pix philosophy. And at the time, Bentham was the torch bearer of utilitarianism, and he was considered, and Mill considered him as his master or teacher. So he tried to reform the utilitarianism, but he ended up in destroying the whole essence of the utilitarianism. That's why he is called as the Peter who denied his master, because he has destroyed the philosophy given by his teacher Bentham. So that's why he is called as the Peter who denied master. Now we'll look how he destroys the foundation of utilitarianism. As he was influenced by the Bentham as well as from the Greek philosopher, so he tries to merge the Bentham's utilitarianism and Greek philosophers' idealism, and these things cannot be comparable, cannot be equal, because the utilitarianism has the sole purpose of pleasure, accept the pleasure and reduce the pain, and the whatever it is in the sense, and the idealism has the different perspective, as I have told you in other lectures. Idealism comes on the ideality, morality and ethics. There are the other different things. So he tries to merge all the utilitarianism and idealism, and he ended up in the destroying the utilitarianism main essence. That's how it is. Salient features of utilitarianism by Bentham. So we will look into it. The first will be the principal utility as a principle of ethics. Principle of utility as principle of ethics. Nature has placed man under the governance of the two sovereign masters, pleasure and pain. Not only we do what they dictate, but we ought to do that way. He considers that the principle of utility as a principle of ethics means that whatever the utility is, it is, and whatever the ethics, they work, and what we can say that they work the contrary to each other. So that's why it is. And the Bentham says that the pleasure is just in quantitative term. Quality is not. Quality is not important. Bentham says that the pleasure is just in quantitative term, not in the qualitative. Quality is not important means that the quality is not important. He says that the as the person enjoys the same playing a football in the in your local ground, he has the same quantity as he plays in the stadium or in the nationals. It differs on the quality, it doesn't differ on quality, because he thinks that the quantity is matter. As his popular example is that the pushpin is as good as poetry. As good as poetry. Pushpin is the chess game sort of thing, and poetry is the dialect, or it is differ. So he says that they have the same quality, pushpin and the poetry. It doesn't differ on quality. It is just the enjoyment of the quantity, how much the person is gaining from playing a pushpin or listening to poetry. And other thing is that the pleasure is materialistic. Is materialistic. He says pleasure is understood on the basis of experience rather than sacrificing pleasure. He says that the just took an example that you wanna buy a bike, but you sacrifice your money for the for your brother's college fees. So in his way, that is not the pleasure. Pleasure is that if you buy your bike and you ride it, then only you can enjoy the pleasure, by not sacrificing your money for the sake of your brother's college fees. That's how his thinking works. He has also given the philosophic calculus. Philosophic calculus. Calculus to measure the pleasure in the human being and beside the different yardstick according to it. Greatest happiness of greatest number. According to Bentham, if a state does not intervene in economy, if a state doesn't intervene in economy, a state gives rise to maximization of pleasure and profit. A state gives rise to maximization of pleasure and profit. Hence he suggests that the state's intervention in economy on behalf of poor to provide them social security may not be the desired policy. Bentham thinks that if a state interfere in upliftment of poor by introducing policy, it may not be good. But his principle has been criticized by socialists. Socialist says that he gives the primacy to profit over number. Means that he is what we can say that he is giving the primary thing to the profit, rather considering that the huge majority of people will be happy, then it will be the good thing. Mill's revision of Benthamism. Mill also accepts that human actions are considered and guided by the pleasure. However, he makes the following changes in Bentham's concept of pleasure. Let's see how he makes the concept change. He says that the pleasure is not just quantitative, it is qualitative also. Like as I have said that the if you want to buy a bike and you sacrificed it for your brother's college fees, then also it will give you the pleasure, as you are sacrificing it for your brother and you want to see him happy and to study hard. So that's why you are seeing it as the other thing. So he says the quantity and the quality is also differ, but in the Bentham thing, quality doesn't differ. Quality is the same as the quality of other things. It is just the quantity which is should be. And the second point is that there is a difference between pleasure and happiness. He says that the pleasure is about satisfaction of body and happiness is satisfaction of soul. As you eat an ice cream by buying a 10 you eat an ice cream by spending a 50 rupees by yourself, then it will pleasure your appetite, that you feel that how good it was the taste. But if you use the same if you fed an ice cream to the poor people or the poor kids, then there will be the different sort of feeling. That will be the happiness. It will be not be the pleasure, but it will be the happiness. By seeing it, your soul will get satisfied, as you have made them, you have bring a smile in the poor kid's face who is for whom it is hard to get buy ice cream. So that's. And the third point is that once pleasure becomes qualitative, once pleasure becomes qualitative term, quality cannot be measured, and thus it makes specific calculus redundant. He says that once the pleasure becomes qualitative term, quality cannot be measured, and thus it makes the philosophical calculus irrelevant. We can't measure the quality of the happiness and the quality of pleasure, because in the aspect of the Bentham, the quality is not there. But in considering the J.S. Mill's theory, there is the quality also which differs in the pleasure and happiness. Mill also suggests that only pleasure differ in quality. Mill suggests only pleasure differ in quality. Persons also differ in also quality. Some are men of reason, and some are men of appetite. So that's all for today, and thank you. We'll move it further.